President Trump proclaimed that Saudi Arabia remains a close American ally following the brutal murder of a Washington Post contributor, Jamal Khashoggi. This after Trump's own CIA concluded the killing was ordered by MBS. Saudi Crown Prince Mohammed bin Salman. The president wrote that the Crown Prince might have had advance knowledge. Maybe he did, and maybe he didn't, and was pressed by reporters.
Because it's America first to me. It's all about America first. Saudi Arabia, if we broke with them, I think your oil prices would go through the roof. I've kept them down.
Jamal was my colleague and my friend, and I was shocked to see the president in such a cold-blooded way put his definition of U.S. national interests ahead of values.
As evil as this kingdom is, as I have said over the years, the president is right. Saudi Arabia has now emerged at an important point in history as a partner in the Middle East.
Molly Hemingway, you've written that many in the media have misinterpreted Donald Trump's policy on this because he's moved away from foreign interventions, for example, particularly those based on morality. But it's still striking for so many in the media to hear him say of the Crown Prince, despite the CIA findings, maybe he did, maybe he didn't.
Well, first of all, I want to point out that we have word of what the CIA findings were because there was an anonymous leak. We don't have anything that we can point to.
There's no report we can read, yes.
And then there's also the issue of whether the CIA should be setting foreign policy, whether they have a good track record of trying to dictate foreign policy in the Middle East. We have in recent decades seen where they did not do a very good job.
The slam dunk in Iraq, perhaps?
Yes. So the idea that they should be setting it, I think, is one of the errors that we saw in the media coverage. In general, though, yes, Donald Trump has a very different foreign policy than what we saw in the Republican Party and in the Democratic Party over the last few decades. We had this idea, we had sort of an experiment with spreading democracy or spreading American values, that this would be, we would invade countries and then they would greet us as liberators, as Dick Cheney said, and then it would all go very well. Well, it didn't go very well. We've had a bunch of failures, we've had a bunch of money and a bunch of lives lost, and I think that the American people were not as elated with that approach.
Yeah.
But you're seeing in the media coverage, they're still all in on this, spreading American values as a way, as being the primary issue in foreign policy. Donald Trump says it's national interest. What is in our interest at home and what's in our interest at abroad? It is very different.
Sarah Fisher, I will grant that Jamal Khashoggi, his case, got far more coverage than if it had been some dissident because of the Washington Post connection, because he was an opinion journalist. But the Saudis lied repeatedly about his murder. First said he walked out of that consulate, then said, oh, it was a fist fight. I mean, there's a whole litany of lies here. And now Trump's CIA, he says these are CIA's feelings, not findings, but as leaked, as Molly says the guy running Saudi Arabia day to day ordered this murder. And that has led to the media denunciations.
Yeah, I mean, as a reporter, you can't help but look at the evidence of everything that we've seen so far. First, they say he walked out of the embassy and that he's alive. Then they're saying, oh, well, he died, but it was in a fist fight. I mean, and then you have people that are now being persecuted by MBS for what they are saying is a gruesome killing. So I think the problem here is that we know that they've been lying. In other cases, we've seen really gruesome situations, but the president is defending someone who we know has lied to the entire world about the situation. I mean, it looks foolish.
Capri Cafaro, is it fair then for the media to go to the next step, say, oh, Donald Trump, he always sides with autocrats, or he only cares about Saudi oil dollars, when there are other things to consider in the complex relationship between two countries?
Sure. Well, and actually CNBC made the point that, this may be more of that, President Trump is more transactional, and one of the things that he may get out of this is the Saudis stepping away from Yemen, for example. So he might actually get something out of this. But there's, I think, undeniably a trend here that warrants coverage and scrutiny. That, when you saw Trump standing next to Putin talking about, well, we're not really sure what our intelligence community and our law enforcement says about, election interference, and obviously his cozy relationship with the leader of North Korea. So there is, I think, an argument to be made there. But, is it a step too far? I don't know, maybe not.
This is an intelligence community that went to war with the president several years ago, has done politicized leaking. You have not seen anyone really held accountable for it yet, even though some of these leaks were very, very bad criminal leaks.
But that doesn't take away the fact that
if you want the president to trust you, you probably should behave in a slightly different way.
Is it fair for the press to say, to dump on Trump over this, when previous presidents, without the hot spotlight of such a high-profile murder, also cooperated with Saudi Arabia, despite all kinds of
it's
terrible things by that regime.
It's not just Saudi Arabia. We have frequently made alliances with people who are very bad, most notably in World War II with the Soviet Union, which committed human atrocities on a scale that's almost unimaginable. Sometimes you do it because you have other interests in mind. It's not good. It's bad. We don't like
Arming the Afghans against the Soviets?
All right, we got to go.